The Dogs are on the outside looking in for the college football playoff, but a win versus number 7 Tennessee at home could change things. Welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is our fabulous producer, Wayne Ridenauer in wonderful Memphis, Tennessee. And of course, my co-host for the evening, Larry Gardner, the PA voice of your Rome Emperors. You can catch us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, Apple and Spotify. Our personal X's at JJ Get You One for myself, at RWY Jr. for Wayne, at Corder Todd for TC Todd Corder, who is out running the clock for Georgia State tonight and for Clayton State tonight in the Peach Belt Conference. And then, of course, LG for real, though, for Larry Garner. Larry, how you doing tonight, man?
Man, doing very well. Everything is going awesome up here in Northwest Georgia. Glad to be back on. It's been a minute, so I'm glad to be back on with the fellas and get to chit-chat. A lot of different things is going down with the college football playoffs, some basketball, some NFL football. So I'm just excited to be back on with the gentlemen. Glad to be back on. Thank you, JJ.
No problem. Wayne, how you doing, man? How are things in Memphis?
Well, things in Memphis are all right, but we've got a new three-time NASCAR champion in Joey Logano. He is now ranked up there with the likes of Darrell Waltrip and Cale Yarborough for being a three-time champion. So that's quite a good crowd for a young guy to be running with.
Yeah, pretty big-time names in the NASCAR world.
Well, how are you? Speaking of how everybody's doing, JJ, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing well, thank you. Not as well as those Atlanta Hawks, though. The comeback win last night versus Boston. Atlanta overcame a 15-point second-half deficit to beat the Celtics 117-116 in their NBA Cup opener. No Trae Young, no problem. Dyson Daniels scored 28 points, a career high, by the way. Jalen Johnson had a triple-double, 18, 13, and 10. And to top it all off, Atlanta ended a 2-game losing streak. So I'm doing well, but not Atlanta Hawks well. What's on tap for today's show? We get who's in, who's out. We're going to give you our final college football playoff ranking predictions right here, and we'll preview and pick 6 of the best football games in our Pick 6 this week. Let's kick things off with the 12-team playoff discussion. Came out last night, Tuesday night at 8:30. The new 12-team college football playoff is made for an interesting season thus far, and it's only going to get more crazy. Who do you think gets in the final college football playoff rankings as they currently stand right now? Oregon's your number 1 team, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Indiana 5, BYU 6, Tennessee 7, Notre Dame 8, Miami 9, Alabama 10, Ole Miss 11, and Georgia 12. But on the outside looking in, because Boise State's a conference champion, those are your top 12, 13 teams in the college football playoff. Larry, I'll start with you, man. Give me your prediction for the final 12 teams that get in this bad boy. We're gonna play fast forward a little bit and just get to the final rankings. But we're going to do it right here 2 weeks early. What do you got?
Well, I do believe, even though it looks a certain way right now, there's still a lot of football left to be played. And because of that, realistically, I think you're only 2 quote unquote Cinderellas, if you want to call them that, I think will be Indiana. And I'm just gonna go out on a limb and tell y'all this. I believe Coach Prime gonna get it done, and I hate to even call Colorado a Cinderella, but I do believe they're gonna end up being Big 12 champs. I believe they're gonna actually crash the party too. So if I had to pick right now, Texas is in from the SEC. Texas is in. Bama's in. I think Georgia's in because I think Georgia's gonna win Saturday. So I think Texas, there's a sneak peek. I think Georgia's going to win Saturday. I think there's enough heat surrounding Carson Beck and his play as of late. I do believe Kirby's going to light a fire into them, and I do believe they're going to handle business at home. If this was in Knoxville, I would not pick Georgia to win. So because of that, I think Georgia gets in. Here's my problem.
And then you're kind of going chalk everywhere else, or you think Boise State? So in your scenario, Larry, and we'll just converse about this. Wayne, feel free to jump in.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have a similar scenario as me. I have Boise State getting a first-round bye and Colorado being that 12th seed with two losses as a conference champion. That means BYU probably trickles out. Or maybe do they stay up high enough with their SMU win? If SMU is – this thing could get crazy. If SMU is the conference champion in the ACC, BYU has that win over them early. So BYU could knock a team out if the Big 12 ends up getting 2 in, which I don't think will happen simply because strength of schedule. BYU's isn't as high as, let's say, Georgia's, Ole Miss, Alabama, these teams with 2 losses. So it's going to get really interesting down the line. And I like your pick there. I do think Coach Prime and the Buffaloes get the job done. They're playing good football right now, complementary football on defense and offensively, and they're getting it done on special teams as well. So all 3 phases clicking, and you can only beat who you play. And that's what Colorado has done exactly. Sitting at, 17th in the current rankings.
I think so,
They have every shot in the world to line it up. Go ahead, Larry. Finish it out.
No, you're good. You're good because here's my conundrum is the Big Ten. Because currently in the Big Ten, you got Oregon, you got Ohio State, you got Penn State, you got Indiana, all sitting there either undefeated or with 1 loss. Say, okay, Oregon and Ohio State still have to play each other. You know, they've done it already, and Oregon beat them head-to-head. All right. I don't know if Penn State and Ohio State have played each other yet. But I know
they have. Penn State got beat by Ohio State earlier.
Okay.
That's Ohio State's only ranked win.
So you see what I mean? So you got Ohio State, who has already gotten beat by Oregon, who's undefeated. Then you got Penn State, whose losses to Ohio State. Then you got Indiana, who's undefeated. And Indiana, I don't know if even Oregon, if Oregon is even on their schedule. And those 2 have to play each. So that's the one. I don't know if you're going to be able to get 4 teams out of the Big Ten. So the way my head goes right now is you got Ohio State, Oregon, and probably Penn State. You got Bama, Georgia, and Texas from the SEC. So that gives you 6. The Big 12 will have Colorado. The ACC, I'm still going with Miami. So that gives you 8. So now you got 4 other spots that are open between Ohio State, between BYU, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, and Boise State. Maybe even SMU. So you got 4 spots and 5 teams. So if I'm going with that parameter, the team that doesn't make it then has to be SMU, because then Miami would have had to beat them in the ACC championship. So SMU is a team that's on the outside looking in based on the way that works out. But it's so close, and you still got so much football left to play that, and everybody's playing each other. You know, Georgia and Tennessee plays this week. So that's going to be a big-time game that's going to determine who's going to do it. Because if Georgia loses, they're done.
Yeah.
Cooked. Finito. It's a wrap. So I think out of the top 12 that they've got them ranked right now, and Boise's got the easiest path to it, to be honest with you. Man, if as a conference champion, Boise gets in, SMU gets out. So that means one of either BYU or Indiana gets out, which in that case, it has to be BYU. So it's too much really to decide it all as of right now, because there's too many games to be playing. And if you've not paid attention to college football at any point in time in the last 10 years, this year is the time to do it, because everybody is so close. You know, it's anybody can really truly beat anybody. When you see Alabama go through that 2-game losing streak and really play a whole bunch of close games, and you see Georgia handle Texas like it ain't nothing and then lay a goose egg against Ole Miss, you know, it's literally every week something different can happen. So in that scenario, like kind of what you were talking about, JJ, man, I see SMU being out, Boise might making it, and I see BYU out. So everybody else makes it except them 2.
Yeah, it's real interesting. I And the SEC championship game can get really, really crazy. If Georgia beats Tennessee, if Auburn beats A&M and A&M beats Texas, or there's some scenarios where you could basically get down to the fourth tiebreaker, and this is part of my final thought, that LSU could get back into the SEC championship with 3 overall losses and still get into college football playoff as an automatic qualifying conference champion, which would throw a wrench in a whole lot of things. So there's a lot of scenarios. I don't think that will happen. I personally think the head-to-head, I think Bama will prevail, and I think you'll probably see Bama and Texas in the SEC championship game if all holds right. But man, things could get chaotic. You could have a random draw, which is the final tiebreaker if it gets down to it in the SEC, which would just be bonkers if you had this great football season and they're like, Missouri and Georgia, they're playing in the SEC title game. It could just get absolutely chaotic. But I do like Oregon in there as a conference champion. I'm projecting, I guess, Texas right now as a conference champion. I'll give the nod to Colorado as a conference champion. And then I still think somehow, some way, Clemson might find a way to win the ACC and get in. But if Miami's in there, I'll put Miami in there right now. I think Notre Dame's going to get in unless Army stuns them. And then that could be a whole nother factor, folks. If Army beats Notre Dame and wins the AAC, could they jump Boise as that last group of 5 team being unbeaten? I think they should. And the Notre Dame win would trump anything that Boise State has, in my opinion, especially Boise State having the loss to Oregon. So this thing could get really interesting. But, yeah, I'll have Oregon as the conference champion. I'll have Texas as your conference champion. I will go with Colorado as your Big 12 champion. And I'll say Miami wins the ACC for terms of sake. Then, again, we'll put Colorado as that 12th seed. They don't get the bye. Boise does. And then you have 7 at-large teams. I like Notre Dame to get in. I like Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee to get in. And then I still think Penn State and Indiana, or Ohio State and Penn State, 2 of those 3 teams I think get in. I think the Big Ten gets 3 in. I think the SEC gets 4 simply because of strength of schedule. And this thing could get really, really interesting. Again, if Army decides to show up, play a great game, beat Notre Dame, win the conference championship, win the extra game they have against Navy, and be, 14-0, I believe, at that point, or 13-0. So it's going to get real interesting if Army stays unbeaten and gets in these college football playoff. I'm not picking it right now, but things can happen. There's so many scenarios in this. Wayne, let me hear your 12 teams or your favorites to get in, and then let's go over some chaos scenarios, and we'll get out of here.
All right. Well, I'm kind of working on mine right now as we speak. That's why I keep turning my head to the side here. But I'm gonna go ahead and just tell you what I've got so far. And this is in no particular order. These are the ones I think are going to get in. SMU, Miami, Tennessee, Texas, Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State, BYU, Colorado, and I guess we throw in Boise State and maybe Ole Miss. But that's a stretch going Ole Miss because that'd be 4 SEC.
It's getting really tough, folks. I mean, this 12-team playoff has made things interesting for a lot of teams. And I tell you what, Heather Dinich said it on several programs today. She's a college football playoff extraordinaire for the old 4-letter network, and she said on Pat McAfee's show she would hesitate to count out a 3-loss SEC team in certain scenarios because, let's face it, folks, South Carolina's playing really good ball right now. If they win out, their 3 losses are against top-ranked opponents, and they got some monster wins on their schedule. It'd be a Clemson win, and they just beat a good Vanderbilt team. So there's a lot of scenarios that could play out in this as chaotic. Let's get our general thoughts on the college football playoff rankings currently. Larry, what do you think? I think what's crazy to me, and then I'll get your thoughts on this, that Oregon, Ohio State, and Texas, it's two wins for Oregon, one for Ohio State. So between the three teams, it's just three top wins. Penn State included, Indiana included. You're still only got three top wins, ranked wins in the top five. And then Alabama's sitting there at 10, has 3 or 4 ranked wins by themselves. So this is really interesting how they're ranking wins at the top of this current college football playoff rankings. Larry, your thoughts on that?
No, you're absolutely right, and it's how much they're giving credit. Like in years past, even with the system the way it was before they went to the expanded CFP, even when it was just a 4-team CFP, you wouldn't have seen rankings as high as what Indiana and BYU have gotten being undefeated. They would have probably been about 16th or 17th. And then you would have seen the 2-loss Clemson or the 2-loss A&M, ranked a little bit higher just because of the schedule that they have to face. Now, it doesn't even matter. I think there is the method to the madness is to do this as close to what March Madness is as possible so that the group of 5 teams realistically think that they actually have a shot to win the national championship, whereas in years past, realistically, they just didn't. I mean, you had several teams that were undefeated and really never got a shot at it. But now you got teams who you never would have even imagined had a legitimate shot at being national championships or being a national champion and being in what's the word I'm looking for? Contesting for it, or just
contention.
There you go, contention. I knew it was close. I couldn't get the word out to save my life, but being in contention for it is a realistic possibility. And now you got a whole different fan base whose eyes are now glued to every game because they legitimately have a shot. So I like what's going on. I think it needs to stay here. I don't think they need to expand it anymore, because if you got the amount of chaos that could potentially happen over the next couple of weeks on the horizon, if you open this up to a 16-team playoff, oh man, all bets are off. It literally would be the wild, wild west. So I like what it's doing. I like the attention it's gathering. I like the fact that teams that you ordinarily wouldn't hear of actually have a shot to participate and compete. The big boys are still going to be the big boys, but as we saw with Vandy and Alabama, on any given Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, anybody can beat anybody.
Yeah, and if you go to ATL Prime Sports Twitter feed, I have we went in depth, Todd and I and yourself, Larry and Wayne, on our thoughts on this college football playoff ranking and what could happen. And we went as far as, I think the little guys have a shot. Todd doesn't think as much. I think the big guys will still prevail most of the time. But I think in this scenario, you're right. I think these group of 5 teams have more of a shot than ever. We've seen the Vandy's get beat by Georgia State, and Vandy beat Alabama. We've seen Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame. We've seen these guys come in and compete. There's other instances of this all the way up and down college football this year, last year, recent years. And I think with over a week and a half, nearly 2 full weeks to prepare, these group of 5 teams can get healthy and knock someone off. And then all bets are off when momentum's going and neutral sites and this and that. I think they have a better chance than they ever have, and I agree with that sentiment very much so. I'm not saying they're going to go win one this year. I'm not calling Boise State your national champion, but Genty gets going and you get that momentum going, it's going to be tough to stop anybody in Boise. And again, that name, image, likeness, and the transfer portal is We're starting to see the benefits of that. It's trickling down into the G5. We talked to Dave Cohen about it. You see it at the SIAC levels. These guys who don't play at Alabama, don't play at Georgia, they're trickling into the SIAC, and the level of competition in college football is really starting to even out at the top 3 levels, which is FBS, FCS, and Division II. And it's really interesting what a week and a half, 2 weeks in a playoff atmosphere, playoff practicing, media rights. And you're right, it gets an area of the country that may not necessarily be watching football in December, college football in December, getting eyes on it. Wayne, you have one more final thought on the college football playoff, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know this is probably not going to fall on too many ears listening, but one of the things that I really wish would happen is that they would rank the undefeated teams above all the other teams who have losses. And I could get some kickback on that because you say, well, they play in such a weak conference, they don't play. But you got to remember that the type of recruits they get for that conference are not quite the type of recruits that the SEC would get. So to go undefeated in any conference, I think, is something that merits you being ranked pretty high. The other thing that I hope does never come into effect on this college football playoff, but I know it probably does, is name recognition and TV revenue.
Yeah, I think unfortunately we know the answer to that. Todd likes to call it pure playoff privilege.
Yeah.
He gets that from friend of the show,
Dave.
Tim Brando.
Oh, okay.
And I think there is some of that involved for sure. Absolutely agree with that. But I also, I mean, for what you said, Wayne, is a very good point. The recruits aren't as less, so it's still a pretty good. But then you go over here to this side, and they do play in a tougher conference. Everything, both points hold water. And it comes down to, do you really think, and I hate this because in college football, we tend to play these games out here on ATL Prime Sports and ESPN and in Grapevine, Texas, like we did last year. And they left an undefeated conference champion out of the 14 playoff for the first time ever. And they also dropped the team that lost to conference champion back more than 3 spots for the first time ever. So this playoff committee, it wouldn't push it past me if you saw a 3-loss Georgia maybe sneak into the back end of the playoff as some chaotic things happen down the road. So nothing is out of the water, but I think we all agree the 12-team playoff has been refreshing. It's added more recognition to games. Like, look at this Missouri-South Carolina game. In years past, this is probably a meaningless game versus 2 really good teams.
I don't want to disparage this channel, but that normally would have been an ESPN Plus game.
Yeah.
Jefferson Pilot.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this would be probably a noon kickoff between some ranked teams, and you're like, woohoo! But now you got a 4:15 SEC network big-time battle, and both these teams are on the outside looking in. But again, I've seen crazier things happen in college football, as we all have. Larry, any final thoughts on the college football playoff?
No, I'm just looking forward to seeing how it ends. I'm looking forward to seeing every week, to see the upsets, to see if everybody can hold serve that needs to hold serve, to see what unfolds. Because I'm telling you, I believe this next 6 weeks is going to be packed with some serious drama, and I'm here for it all.
Yeah, I'm here for it all. And Georgia fans, pump the brakes. They got 2 losses. Okay,
Yeah.
Pump the brakes. They haven't played well, and if they win this weekend and play well, guess what? They're probably going to be 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, maybe even up into the 6 area just real quick. So let's pump the brakes. Realize there's 2 losses, and that is trumped by the 1 loss. It is baffling, though, that Miami loses to an unranked Georgia Tech. Georgia loses to a ranked Ole Miss and drops 9 spots. So that is interesting. We'll keep that in mind. But again, it's 1 loss versus 2. It doesn't bother me as a guy who knows college football very well in and out. As Larry, Wayne, and Todd, we all do. We're all surrounded by it. So, folks, just pump the brakes. The U deserves to be in front of Georgia because they got that. They got that. So Yeah, move aside Georgia. Let Miami have their week, and we'll see if they can win the ACC. But Larry, I agree with you. Let the U get in there. Cam Ward's been really impressive. Don't care about the close games they've been in. They've won them, and they're in a Power 5 conference. And the ACC guys, pretty good. They only have 3 teams under 500. Everybody else is above 500 or better. They're pretty good conference, folks. I think they're better than the Big 12 overall. So that's my final thought on the college football playoff. We'll move from that to our pick 6. It's a doozy this week, guys. We were off last week, so we're continuing from a couple weeks ago. But Larry, you are in the lead by 1 game over Wayne at 36-29-1. That makes Wayne 35-30-1. Todd caught up after a 6-0 week last week at 34-31-1. And I am coming in the rear after a week at 2-4, 31-34-1. Let's get to the pick 6. We picked 6 of the best football games from the weekend, college and pro, and we use Wednesday spreads from ESPNBet.com. Without further ado, our first games in the NCAA. Number 20, Clemson, 7-2 at Pittsburgh, 7-2. Clemson is a 10-point road favorite in this one. Over-under is 53 and a hook. Saturday, noon Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. Larry, this is another one of those games probably thrown out the window last year in a college football playoff format of 4, but not this year. Really ramps up this game in the ACC as both these teams are still technically alive for that conference championship. Larry, what you got?
Yeah, Pittsburgh has always been a tough place to play, no matter who it is with the ACC. You know, it's always, even back in their history to the Big East, it's always been a difficult place to play. But Clemson has some things that they're still trying to get to and play for. And I believe even at 10 points, I ordinarily would have taken Pittsburgh because of that spread, but because what I know Clemson has in the front of them and what they've got to play for, I'm actually going to pick them to cover. And actually, I think there's going to be a 2-touchdown victory for Clemson. I think they're going to win by 14. Too much still left to play at State. They're on a mission. Dabo's got them playing well even after the loss, their second loss, of course. So I really think that they've got to get real focused and reset, because the best of football that they still have left to play is right in front of them, and you've got to handle business on the road. If being a part of this playoff is a dream still for them, you got to take care of business on the road.
Got to take care of business. I like the pick. This was the toughest game to pick for me of the weekend, college or pro, because Pittsburgh and Clemson both score, and ironically, both these teams don't have that great of defenses. You go back up to the notes. It's 17th for Pitt in total offense, 36 points a game. Clemson's 14th, 37 points a game. Pitt scores enough to keep it close. I think they lose by 8 or 9. So I'm going Pitt in the points. But I really like what you said there, because both these teams have beaten up on weaker competition. And there's a lot to play for Clemson. And Dabo's won this thing 2 times. He knows how to win. But again, both these teams beaten up on weaker competition. 3 combined wins versus teams with winning records, and 4 combined losses to teams with winning records. So you really don't know what to expect in this game. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I like the over in this. I think it's going to be about a 30-28 game. Like I said, Clemson, it wouldn't surprise me if they get a pick 6 late and cover the spread. But I'm going the Pitt Panthers and the points right here. I just think that 10-point road, 10-point home underdog, I'm going with my home dog. I got a chance to do it. I'm always doing it. Pitt and the points. Wayne, what you got?
Well, I'm a big fan of cake and candy. And Pittsburgh at home with 10 points is a lot of cake and candy, so I'm going with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Todd's going with Pitt and the points as well. I really want to change my pick because I'm like Larry. Larry kind of convinced me. Dabo's a great coach. He knows what his team is. He knows what they need, and he's just silently slurking. No one's really paying attention to him. It seems like that's when Clemson pounces the most. Again, Todd goes Pittsburgh and the points as well. Game number 2, The number 23 Missouri Tigers travel to Columbia, South Carolina to take on the number 21 ranked South Carolina Gamecocks at 6-3. South Carolina's home 12-point favorites. Over under on this one's 44 and a hook. 4:15 p.m. on the SEC Network. Wayne, what say you?
Well, a few years ago, I made a trip through South Carolina and stopped and had lunch with a friend of mine named Cassie in Whitmire, South Carolina. And it must have been something in that food that I ate, because it is extremely hard for me not to pick South Carolina no matter what. And so I'm picking South Carolina to cover on this one.
I like it. Larry, what you got?
Wayne, I don't know what you ate. Had to be pretty good.
It was.
But I'm gonna tell you, just plain as day, Williams-Brice Stadium, no matter what Saturday of the month it is or what Friday night, is one of the most electric places to have to play and win a football game.
I can hear a sandstorm playing right now.
Well, and you just have to be in the environment. But here's the deal, with the expectations that Missouri had to begin the season with, they've fallen a little bit short of what they wanted to be, but in the midst of it, they still had a pretty decent season, and they still got some stuff to play for too. Unfortunately, South Carolina is and Shane Beamer's got them guys. When I tell you they're on a roll, they are on a roll, man. And to say all of that, I do believe South Carolina wins the game. I just believe Missouri covers. I think this is going to be one of those 4-point games that's going to come down to the wire, and it's going to be one of those field goal miss or make games that pushes them over the edge. So South Carolina wins, but I'm taking Missouri to cover.
Missouri in the points for Larry. Look, to me, South Carolina hasn't beaten Missouri since 2018. That was crazy to me. I didn't realize it's been that long of a streak. No Brady Cook for the Tigers either, as Coach Drinkwitz announced Monday Drew Pine would start yet again. South Carolina defense, legit, only allowing 17 points per game, good for 12th in the country in that category. I think Sellers, Lenore Sellers, and Raheem Sanders, Rocket Sanders get the ground game going, opens up explosive plays through the air. They got a big play tight end. Look, Missouri 0-2 versus ranked opponents this season, at A&M and at Bama, losing by a combined score of 75-10. I don't like this environment for Coach Drink. I like the Beamer ball, baby. I think they keep it going and they cover. Give me the Cox to cover, baby. South Carolina big on Saturday, and I like the atmosphere for that reason. Wayne, I like what you said. Or Larry, I like what you said about the atmosphere. Wayne, I like what you said about the food. Todd's taking Missouri in the points, so a house divided here, 2-2. That means it's going to be a good ball game in Columbia, South Carolina. Guys, any final thoughts on that one? It should be a pretty good one on Saturday.
Nope.
Number 3, the arguably game of the weekend. It's the game of the year for the Dogs for sure. Number 7, Tennessee, 8-1, travels to number 12, Georgia, hosting them at 7-2. UGA is a surprising 10.5-point home favorite. Over under this one, 48.5. 7:30 p.m. on ABC. Tennessee finds itself at the top of the SEC standings. Georgia's backed against the wall and facing college football playoff elimination. If Georgia wins this game, it's going to be because they slowed down a top 10 rushing offense, a top 15 scoring offense, and the Dogs scored 24, 25 plus on a top 5 scoring defense, allowing only 12 points a game, is the Tennessee Volunteers. Meaning they got after the quarterback. They forced turnovers as they did at Texas. They scored 30-plus points. This week will require 2 more elements to that. Beck must take care of the football, and the Dogs wide receivers have to stop dropping the football. That eliminates confidence. It also doesn't help when your offensive line is giving up 5 sacks a game. Georgia's offensive line's got to get right. They got to give Beck the time to go through his progressions, and the wide receivers got to stop dropping the football, and they got to get open. They got to get off their receivers. That inside leverage, you got to get physical at the line and get separation, and I think Georgia wins this game easy. I think Georgia's backed up against the wall. I think they've had a tough schedule. They haven't been at home in a long, long time, believe it or not. And I think that's the difference in this game. Right there, Georgia is at home, and the biggest news is coming from Knoxville. Tennessee's quarterback, Nico Iamlov, I can't pronounce his name. I've tried 1,000 times. Thank you. I can't do it. I got Tagovailoa down, but I can't get this one down yet. Nico, he is questionable. He is currently in concussion protocol after leaving last week's game versus Mississippi State. You're getting some contradictory reports out there. Chris Bear-Felica on 3 and Fox Sports said he won't play. Josh Heupel says he's practicing, but he didn't say he would play yet today. So he's kind of said a couple things. Earlier in the week, he said he was on track to play. I really have no clue, but I'll tell you what, that spread tells me Nico isn't playing and the offense does not run as efficiently with the backup in. Give me the Dogs to cover. I think they get it right. I think Beck has a good game and he reminds everybody, hey, I can play football. I like the Dogs to cover a 14-point win and keeps the streak alive versus the Tennessee Volunteers. Long-winded. Larry, what you got? Sorry about that, guys.
10.5. That's
a lot.
Regardless of Nico playing or not, Tennessee's got one of the best defenses in the country.
Indeed.
And Carson Beck is between him and one of either two running backs fumbling the football here and catching the case of fumbleitis. Turnovers has been the issue, man. You know, I agree that Georgia's going to win the football game. That 10.5 is too deep. I think this is going to be a close football game. I want it to be like Texas, and I want Georgia to go in there and kick butt and take names and show them that, hey, we've been back-to-back national champions for a reason, and this is our house on a night game at Sanford Stadium in Athens, Georgia, with the best, rowdiest fans in football. But I do believe Tennessee is going to cover. I do believe 10.5 is too big of a spread. I'm giving Georgia the win, but until I see Carson Beck, I like he got some sense again. Tennessee's defense is going to get, and I hate it because I'm gonna tell you what, when it all started is when Tate Ratliff went out.
Yep.
When he went out is when you started seeing the problems from Carson Beck. And until he and his compadres on the offensive line get it together, because I mean, Texas had every ample opportunity to get to him, but Mike Bobo finally had a game plan that allowed him to get the ball out of his hands quickly and let his playmakers make plays in space. I think you're going to have an equally smart game plan against Tennessee. You can't give him 5 seconds to drop back and try to find people and try to find weapons. I think he's going to have to depend on the running game. He's going to get the ball out quickly. Let's sit all that to say Georgia will win, Tennessee will cover. Give me Tennessee in the points.
Yeah, Tate Ratledge been banged up. You've had Micah Morris in there. You've had Drew Bobo in there at center. Jared Wilson's been flipped around. It's been real tough for the Dogs' offensive line. It should be a good one Saturday night. Wayne, what you got?
Well, I'm going with Tennessee and the points on this one, basically because I feel like over time people have started to figure out Georgia's game. They just hadn't been able to close out the same way Ole Miss did in the second half. So I'm picking Tennessee over Georgia. Then I think this I will predict this though. This is the absolute last game that Georgia will lose this year.
I like that. I like that thought as it being the last one. I hope they don't lose it. We're switching over from college football to the NFL. A Thursday night battle on Amazon Prime matches the Commanders at 7-3, traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. The Eagles at 7. Philadelphia 3.5-point favorite. Over under in this one's 48 and a hook. Wayne, what you got?
Well, I'm taking the Eagles in this one because they're at home and 3.5, they should be able to cover that easy. And I've just never been a fan of the Commanders, even though I worked at FedEx for a long time, and I know Fred Smith's got ties up there. I just feel like the Eagles are the better team in this matchup.
Larry, what you got?
I'm telling you, just watching how they've come together, the Eagles have over the last couple of weeks, you can tell that they've got the playoffs in set. And Jalen Hurts has played some of the best football he's played in a long time, getting his weapons back and having Devontae Smith being healthy and being able to get it to him, and having A.J. Brown on the side being healthy, but even more so having Saquon Barkley do Saquon Barkley things is the legitimate reason that I'm picking Philadelphia as well. I don't, as well as Dan Quinn has done, and the job that he and Jalen Daniels and that team is as great as they've been all season long. Saquon is the X factor, and I don't think they've got anything to answer to stop Saquon. Give me Philly. Give me the Philly Bucks. Give me the Philly Special.
Todd is taking the Eagles to cover, and I don't know if I got his pick in, but he is taking Tennessee in the points as well. I think I forgot that. Tennessee in the points, Eagles cover for Todd. I, myself, am going with the rookie quarterback in the Dan Quinn-led Washington Commanders. Look, a battle for first place in the NFC East. Quarterback Jaden Daniels leads the Commanders in passing and rushing, 13 total touchdowns, taking care of the football through the air, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And he leads the NFL's third best scoring offense, averaging 29 points per game. But Washington is pretty good in the turnover department, +6 in that field. I think they turned Jalen Hurts over a time or two, and they got to stop Saquon Barkley. If they can contain Saquon Barkley in the NFL's second best rushing attack, keep them to around 100 a game, because they're averaging 176. If you can get Hurts to about 15 or 20 yards, contain him, and you keep Barkley to about 80, 90, maybe 100 yards, I like the Commanders' chances. I like the Commanders in that point. I think that hook could hurt everybody. I like the Eagles to possibly win by 3 points. I'm taking the Commanders in the points, but they might even win outright in this one. But I'm feeling like this will be a last-second walk-off field goal for Philly. But I'll take the Commanders in those pesky points and that hook.
Oof.
Again, Eagles cover for all of you three. Let's get to our fifth game, the Dirty Birds. 6-4, traveling to the Mile High City to take on the Denver Broncos, who lost a heartbreaker to the Chiefs last week at 5-5. Denver's 2.5-point home favorites. Over/under in this one's 45 and a hook. Sunday, 4:05 p.m. on Fox. Wayne, why do you like the Falcons?
Because I don't like the Broncos. That's why. Even though Bo Nix, I'm kind of okay with. But I don't know. After that first Super Bowl appearance by the Falcons and losing to what was that famous quarterback they had there?
John Elway.
Yeah, John Elway there, and having to hear all that junk. I've just been turned off to the Broncos, so I'm not picking Broncos probably ever.
Ever. I like it. Larry, what you got?
I'm probably going to regret saying this. I'm probably going to regret picking this. But this game is going to come down to how well the Atlanta defense can keep Bo Nix in contain. He has been absolutely phenomenal doing what Sean Payton has asked of him in his rookie campaign. He has not tried to go outside of who he is. He has done exactly what has been asked of him, and everybody and their mama know how Sean Payton gets jacked up playing Atlanta. Atlanta's going out west and playing in Mile High, and they laid an egg against their hated rival. As bad as I want Atlanta to win, I got to go with Denver in the points. I think Denver's going to win this football game because this is a game that Atlanta has goofed up in years past, where this is a team that they should handle easily. Like this, to me, Atlanta should beat this team by 17 points or more. But because of several different factors, they will go and lay an egg. And then all the talk that we had been encouraged about and everything that everybody was just hyped up and insane about. Yes, I'm wearing the Atlanta Bijan jersey right now as it speaks. But I do believe Denver's going to win this football game. So give me Denver in the points.
Todd is taking the Falcons in the points. I'm taking the Falcons in the points, and I'll tell you what. The Broncos have the NFL's fourth best scoring defense, allowing only 17 points a game. Can the Falcons move the ball on that unit? That's the biggest key to the game, in my opinion. Falcons able to move the football, stay in front of the chains on third downs. I think they'll win this game pretty handily. Denver's offense has struggled to score the last 2 weeks, only 10 points versus Baltimore, only 14 versus Kansas City last week. And Atlanta's really good at bouncing back, guys. They're 3-0 this year after losses. I expect much of the same on the road in Denver. Give me the Falcons to cover. Falcons in the points, but an outright win for this guy. I like the Falcons. Like I said, I think they win this game 7-10. I think they do exactly what you think they can do, Larry. And we have different confidence levels. If the Falcons just have a decent day from Younghoe Koo, they probably win that game. So I like the Falcons to bounce back. Again, Wayne's Falcons, Larry Denver, myself, and TC Falcons and those points. The game of the year up until this point in the NFL happens this weekend. It's the 9-0 Chiefs traveling to Buffalo, New York to take on the Bills at 8-2. Buffalo's 2-point home favorites. Over under this one's 48 and a hook. 4:25 p.m. on CBS. Tony Romo will be calling up all the plays for us. Something has to give, as Kansas City has won 15 straight dating back to last year, and the Bills have won 5 straight. Both these defenses are playing well and allowing under 20 points a game. Bills have forced at least 1 turnover in each of their games this season. They will need to do that this Sunday at least 2 times to beat the champs, plus 13. Best in the NFL in that category, by the way, for the Buffalo Bills. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen has taken care of the football this season. 17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I think that track stays moving forward. I should say that train stays moving forward. I like the Bills at home. I like the Bills to cover that spread. I think they win by a field goal. Look, it's hard to win 15 straight games in the NFL. It's hard to let alone win 9 of them in a row. The Chiefs have won 7 one-possession games this year. They're bound to lose one of them. I like the Bills at home in this one. Give me the Bills and them points, or the Bills cover, excuse me, at home. I think starting to get cold up there. Maybe Patrick Mahomes and that offense goes a little cold. Wayne, what say you?
Man, the Chiefs have had a lot of close games this year. And I think the 1972 Dolphins can relax because this is going to be the first loss for the Chiefs this year. I'm taking the Bills to cover.
Ooh, I did not expect that.
Give me Kansas City. It's Mahomes. It's Mahomes' magic. And he finds a way to win no matter what situation it's in. I don't think this is the week he's going to lose. I still think it's going to be Kansas City. I think he'll probably lose after the bye week. But for the dude to have to endure injury after injury, and just people just show up. He gets DeAndre Hopkins and turns him back into an NFL all-pro wide receiver. You got doggone Kareem Hunt, who's been in the doggone dungeons of the dungeons, and he turns him into a fantasy stud once again. It's Mahomes' magic, man. And the Chris Jones and that defense is absolutely phenomenal. I know it's in Buffalo, but it's just Kansas stinking City. Give me KC, baby.
Yeah, and it's really hard for me to pick this one. But I'm going Bills simply by the numbers. I think at some point the Chiefs have to lose. I don't see them going perfect. And Isaiah Pacheco is back. He is activated off of the IL, so that could be a factor in this ball game as well. Guys, let's move from there. Again, TC, Chiefs and points. Don't press send. Don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. Our final thought, guys, I'll kick it off. I truly feel like the SEC should go back to divisions and add one more conference game. The divisions would prevent a logjam like the SEC currently has, and the extra game would allow teams to play each other more frequently. Because let's face it, if the SEC gets down to the 4th tiebreaker, cumulative conference winning percentage, and LSU gets in after losing to Bama, getting curb stomped by Bama, that'd be a travesty. Or even worse, what if it gets down to the final tiebreaker one year? And I'm not saying it'll happen this year, but what if it's a random draw of 2 teams? That would be crazy. Just go back to divisions and let's make it easy. The Sun Belt still does divisions, and I kind of like what the Sun Belt's doing right now. That's my final thought. Larry, what you got?
Hey, my final thought, man, goes around these ATL Atlanta Hawks, baby. I'm telling you, listen, y'all can say what you want to, but the effort they put in last night against the Celtics, without Trae Young, without about 6 of their rotational pieces, lets me know that this team is going to be legitimate. There will be contenders to have a top 5 Eastern Conference playoff seeding spot by the time this is all done. We have been patient through a lot of drama. We have been patient through a lot of mess. But when you got a 19-year-old kid, a 20-year-old kid, and a 21-year-old kid coming up playing big-time minutes, surrounded by someone who's trying to prove why he's the best point guard in the league, it is time for all of us who are true Atlanta Hawks fans and have suffered through the madness for so long to be excited, baby, because you got something down at State Farm to be pumped up about. Get ready. It's going to be a wild ride.
Wayne, what you got? You're the final thought of the evening, buddy.
Well, this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, Memphis plays the Ohio, I guess they're Bobcats or House Cats or something. Bobcats, okay. And down at the FedEx Forum, and we are still waiting for Mike Davis to smile during a game. He's assistant coach now at Memphis, and I don't think I have ever seen him smile during a game. His press picture on the Tigers website has him smiling, but I suspect that might be photoshopped.
Classic final thought from our producer, Wayne. That's awesome. Guys, that wraps up our show. If you like the content, please give us a like, a subscribe, hit that notification button so you get notified at our latest content. For Larry in Adairsville, Wayne in Memphis, I'm JJ here in Lilburn. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend of college football and pro football. We'll see you next week. Get you one.